Okay, we are officially live on both, apparently, my personal page and our Facebook page. So before we really get started, I just want to share this a couple places. So if you are hopping on early, give us just a moment here. We will be right with you. Yep, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to share it. To my group, and I guess that's actually the only place. Okay, so we can get started. So for those of you guys, oh, now it's actually not doing it on my page, but only on my profile. I swear we might need to get a new tool, but that's okay. It's on my personal, which is better, but just good grief. Okay, so if you're
Nothing more
tuning in,
relatable than some technical difficulties.
I know, I know. Lindsay, you did not miss the first 30 minutes. We are just starting, so you are perfect. Okay, so I'm Angela with Hot Mess Consulting. If you're here, you probably know me, but we do branding and web design, particularly for e-commerce, mostly clothing boutique owners. And also, you may or may not know that has it been like over a year and a half or almost 2 years, right? Since Jill and I were on a show
Oh my
together
gosh. Yeah.
called The Blocks. It's a reality show based on entrepreneur, um, just building blocks. And it was really cool because like there were 75 businesses here and we were all across the board in terms of just starting our business, super successful, have brought in millions of dollars and everything in between. And so that is where I met Jill. And her business is Your Creative Concierge, and she does copywriting. So copywriting is one of my favorite things too, and it's definitely like one of the ways that I've built Hot Mess. It's through your messaging and the words that you use in all of these different places that is so important. Obviously, in the clothing industry, photos are going to be super, super, super important as well. But the words that you use to then sell those products, and even again, every social media post, every blog, like everything you do involves copy. And obviously, that's what Jill's going to go over with you guys on some tips in just a minute here. But so that is how I know Jill. And so I'm excited to introduce her to you guys. You guys in my community would not have met her any other way. So I'm super excited to introduce you to someone new. And yeah, so before we get into her presentation, at the very end, we'll go over a little bit more what the giveaway that she's going to do next week. She'll be running that in my group. We'll be running that in my group. And so we'll give you a little bit more information at the end about that. But otherwise, I'm just going to pass the mic to Jill. And let me pull up your presentation here.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome. This is one of my favorite topics, obviously. And you guys do one of my favorite things, which is get people to shop. I love shopping. So this is a really exciting day. This is essential copywriting for boutique owners. And who the heck am I? Well, I'm Jill Pavlov Vasquez, and I'm the owner of Your Creative Concierge, which is a psychology driven copywriting service. We basically help you to stand out and get attention online because let's face it, there's so much content out there. It's like, how do you stand out? I'm someone who's always loved words. I've always loved standing out. I've been a theater kid my whole life. So, our whole goal is to stand out. And that's really what my special sauce is. And so I teach people how to recognize of all that, we're just one of many, and you really need to be implementing these techniques in order to really get somebody's attention. And then once you realize that, okay, how do you get attention? How do you stand out from your competitors? And a lot of the answer lies in the tactics of copywriting. So, and I'll take, first off, the only thing I can see right now is my presentation. Angela, can I get a verbal? that I'm still connected, like a
Oh,
verbal?
yes, you are
Okay,
good to
great.
go.
Just
I'm
making
just trying to
sure. I'm
share
like,
a couple more
I could
places.
literally be talking to no one right now, and I would have no idea because all I can see is my Canva screen.
Oh, yes, you are good.
So, we'll take questions at the end. I'll take my screen off so I can see and interact. But if there's something that's super unclear, please, Angela, interrupt and let me know because I don't want to be talking about something that everyone's going like, I don't know what the hell that is.
Okay.
So let's jump into the not so basic basics of copywriting because great content is the best sales tool in the world. And the easy way to say what copywriting is your written descriptions, your blogs, what's on your website, all the words, right? That's the really easy way to say it. But it's so much more than words. Copywriting is the way that you persuade people to take the action that you want them to take. In this case, let's say buying the item. It's all of the steps that you take to get them there because a lot of people don't buy on the first time around. A lot of people need to kind of be coerced and not coerced. That makes it sound like you're putting them at gunpoint to buy your stuff. But they need to be persuaded because it's hard for people to part with their money these days for any reason. So they need to know not only what you're selling, but how it's going to make them feel. And that's what copywriting can help with. So I'm starting with unignorable product descriptions because that is very important. Like Angela said, yes, clothing, the picture can really help to sell the item. But like I just said, when you let someone know how they're going to feel when they purchase your product, that just takes it up so much more. How is their life going to change with your product? And every product can be life changing. I don't care what it is. Your copywriting can make it so the first thing that you want to keep in mind is, again, to explain how the product will improve the customer's life. And that means focusing on benefits instead of features. You can list features all you want, but if it's not translating into how is this going to help this person's life, it's not going to connect with them. And I am remiss to have not said this before, but copywriting is all about connecting with people. We buy from the brands that we feel connected to. And our words are all we have to connect with these people. So you also want to clearly state what makes your product different and better than the competition. There's a billion different anti-aging creams out there. What makes yours the one that people need? And that also involves knowing a little bit about your target audience. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But you also want to craft a narrative around the product. Anytime I work with some form of artist, I make sure that they are telling the story behind the piece. Because when you think of a beautiful piece of art, when you hear the story of why the artist made that, the emotion that was put into that, their whys and their reasons for bringing this to life, it deepens the meaning of that piece of art so much. And the same can go for your products when you tell the story and you craft the narrative. Now, this does not mean to write a whole damn novel about your product, but in as a concise way as possible, I'm going to move on to the next one. Describe how the product looks, feels, or smells to create a vivid image in the customer's mind. This helps to craft the narrative. When you do these two things, it helps bring the reader in and let them know that this is more than just a product. This is something that is going to be very meaningful in their life. So we have the product description, and then we have the just as important call to action. Call to action can be a lot of different things. It can be buy, which is your hard call to action, but it could also be signing up for an email newsletter because, even if they don't buy or even if they do buy, it's important to keep them around and keep them in contact. So joining a Facebook community, that's another call to action. Even asking people to comment can be a call to action. I know that's not specifically what we're talking about since that wouldn't really happen on a website, but that's what a call to action is. It's how we get the people to do what we want them to do, essentially. So a really strong call to action always starts with a verb. Examples are get, download, register, discover. You want to let people know essentially what they're doing. Using phrases that create a sense of urgency or scarcity. This is a psychological trigger. In a lot of my presentations, I'll talk about the psychology behind it. That isn't part of today's presentation, but just as a little appetizer of psychology, we're trying to get inside people's minds to get them to do what we want them to do. And sometimes tactics like scarcity and urgency are two psychological triggers that trigger something in the brain that say, oh my God, I need to get this right now. This is how I end up with $200 of, ASOS clothing in my cart, because they're like, hurry, the sale is ending in 10 hours. We use those tactics as a call to action, and they work because people don't want to miss out. They have that FOMO. They don't want to miss out. So it might seem a little sneaky, but hey, everyone else is doing it. So just, scare them a little. You also want to clearly state what that person will get by clicking on the link or clicking on the button. They want to know what they're in for. People don't just randomly click. We're all busy. We don't take the time to explore everything on a web page unless we're stalking a boyfriend or something. But you want to clearly state what they'll gain so that they know, okay, yes, this is for me. Let them know this is what I will gain, because as we're taught, everyone wants what's in it for me. When a customer is looking at something, what's in it for them? Tell them, let them know, make it easy, make it simple. Because people are lazy. That's another thing. They don't want to hunt around for clues. This isn't some escape room. Make it as simple as possible for them to get to that end result that you want them to have, aka buying your items. And always be short, be concise, be clear. Your call to action should not be more than a few words. No one wants to read for days, especially when they're shopping. So make sure that you're getting your point across in as few words as possible. And that's really the art of copywriting. People don't pay me to write giant, long manuscripts. People pay me to give them as few words as possible. But those words, each and every single one of them is going to count. So now we're going to talk about building your brand voice. Now that you have a little bit of a general idea of some kind of the best practices, this really helps you to stand out and be unique as an owner. This is what helps the clothing brands that you see take on different personalities and attract their target audiences. So I'm going to jump right into target audiences because it's so important, because many of you might sell the same types of products, but that doesn't mean that you all have the same audiences. And depending on who your audience is, that changes how you're going to speak to them. You're not going to talk to the boomers the same way that you're going to talk to Gen Z. Different ethnicities, you might talk to them differently, different genders, different, walks of life, everything. The way who your target audience is directly affects what you are saying and how you are saying it. So it helps you, first off, to create tailored messaging, because we don't want to be speaking to everyone, because our products most likely are not for everyone. We want to be speaking to the people that we know are going to buy from us. So when we think about our messaging, it's good to almost have an avatar of who that person is. Think about your most targeted audience person and how would you get this message across to them? And then it kind of comes naturally after that. It's just like speaking, your target audience is also going to help you to choose the right marketing channels. There's so many places to be these days, between TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Reddit, all of it. And we're busy. We don't have time. We're not these mega corporations like Wendy's who can dominate on every platform. Most of us are smaller business owners, and we don't have time to be on every platform. And that's okay. You don't need to be. You just need to be on the ones that are the most effective for you. And I don't have an answer for that. If that's going to be different for every industry, for every person. You just got to play around and find where your people are. Angela has clearly found that her people are on Facebook. Like, look at this. This is awesome. She doesn't waste her time on, other platforms that aren't working for her. She works the ones that are working for her. And so when you know your target audience, you can figure out where are they hanging out. It also helps you to develop more effective products and services, because when you connect with your target audience, Like back in the day, they used to have to pay these market research studies because they didn't have a way to get feedback from their audiences. And they would like spend all this money and have these extravagant bagel platters and pay people to come in and give their opinions. And now you don't need to do that because you can directly talk to your target audience and say like, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about that? For literally free. And all it does is build a stronger connection. It shows that you care about what they think, and it helps you. It's such a win-win situation when you find your target audience and you find a way to connect with them and you can speak directly to them and take their feedback. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you, internet. It also helps you to differentiate from your competitors. Like I said, I'll again use the example of a skincare. Not every skincare is for every person. Some skincare might just be for younger people to maintain. Some of it's like super anti-aging. Some of it's for people with psoriasis. And that all has different target audiences. So if you know your target audiences, it's just another way to differentiate from your competitor. So let's find our voice. This is fun. This is where we get to experiment. You get to kind of put on a little bit of a mask because not that we're not trying to be ourselves, but let's say it's an enhanced version of ourselves. So first, you clearly want to define what your brand values, what its missions are. Literally write this down. I create for my clients these comprehensive brand voice guidelines. And you want to keep this as an evergreen document so that you can note different changes in your voice and have it accessible to all your employees so that anyone who's in charge of writing the messaging will know, kind of what the culture of that brand voice is at the moment. So going off of your mission and your values, take it to the next step and start talking about what your brand story is. Who are you? Who do you help? What do you bring to the world? And once you have a clear vision of those two things, that kind of helps to guide the tone that you're going to speak with. And I have some examples here: friendly, professional, authoritative. One of my clients, her tone is actually unprofessional. You can
I
have
think
a
that's ours over here to some extent too.
yeah, exactly. I can totally see that. And so there's so many different tones. And I don't always promote ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is good for stuff like this. If you kind of just like type out something that you think is really fitting to your brand, say, can you analyze this for my brand tone? Or ask ChatGPT, what are some brand tones for a company that, and then type in your brand mission. ChatGPT is actually pretty decent with that. And I won't get too much deeper into ChatGPT. Otherwise, I will be here for another few hours talking. And you also want to choose words and phrases that reflect your brand's personality and resonate with your audience. Like hot mess in itself is a phrase that resonates with so many people. And from there, there's like a whole language that you can talk to your audience with. It's almost like rappers who have different catchphrases, but it works because we remember them. It's about being memorable and connecting with your audience. I know I say a lot, but it's so true. And staying top of mind. So once you have an idea of what this messaging is going to look like, now it's time to implement it. So first things first is you want to maintain a consistent voice across all your platforms. That document that I was talking about where you kind of detail out your brand voice, you want to make sure that every employee has that, like I said, because whoever's in charge of your socials, of your emails, of your websites, everything needs to sound like it's coming from the same person. Otherwise, it won't work. And the next point I've now made twice, create a comprehensive brand voice guideline. I was ahead of myself, but it's important because first off, things change and you want everyone to be on the same page. Like my client the other day just gave me a whole new phrase that she wanted to use. And I put that in the brand document, and now everyone on my team knows, and everyone on her team knows we're highlighting this phrase. So it is a really important point to make, along with having content banks, which is just another little tidbit I'll throw in there. It always helps to have a spreadsheet of content that you can reuse and recycle, and content ideas, just to get everything out of here and onto there is helps you in the future when you're searching for content ideas. That's another topic. You again want to collect feedback from your audience, not just on your products and services if you have them, but also on your brand voice. Like, you can tell if people are connecting and engaging with the brand voice. And if not, like, have a natural conversation and try different things. It doesn't have to be direct feedback. It doesn't have to be like, why don't you like my brand voice? That's kind of weird. I don't even know what I would say if someone asked me, why don't you like my brand voice? But you try different ways to like connect and engage with them and see what is working for you.
It's all that trial and error, you know?
100%. Like that, marketing as a whole, I could talk all day being an expert
Oh,
in
yeah.
my field or whatever you want to call it, but sometimes you can never account for lightning in a bottle. Sometimes things just happen that it's a mix of right timing and things go viral and it's crazy. And sometimes you can have all the knowledge in the world and for whatever reason, something just doesn't work and you don't really see that till the end of it. But the good thing is that really all you can waste is your time, and trial and error can be fun, make it into a game, like put it into a jar, $1 every time something doesn't work. And then you get to buy something cool at the end once you find something that does. I don't know. I just made that up, but I kind of like it.
That is
And
fun,
so,
yeah.
yeah, right? But always stay adaptable, let go of ego, let go of being stubborn about what you think is right for your brand voice. Really listen to your audience because they're the ones that are going to buy from you. So now we're going to get into some unignorable email marketing. We see this lovely lady. And listen, especially with shopping, our inboxes are inundated. Every morning I wake up and I have something from Akira, something from New York and Company, something from jewelry store, from everywhere. They want me to buy every single day of my life. And like, I wish I could. But how do you stand out in all of those emails and get people to be really excited like this when they see those emails? And it all starts with your subject line. 47% of email recipients will open an email based on a subject line alone. I'm sure you guys know the feeling of waking up in the morning and doing that morning scroll through your inbox, especially the inbox where like the shopping emails go to. That would, for me, that's my AOL that I still keep. Every morning I scroll through it and most of it is delete, 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 delete. But every once in a while, one of those stores will catch my attention with something. And that something obviously starts with the subject line because that's the first and only thing that you see before you hit that delete button. So it is so, so important. If they don't like that subject line, that email is never going to get read. Open rates are increased by 50% when subject lines are personalized. That means putting the recipient's name in them. And urgent subject lines, I talked about this before, the FOMO and the urgency and the scarcity, those increase the open rate by an average of 22%. If my favorite store tells me that they're having a sale that ends in 24 hours, guaranteed I'm opening that email. I don't care how much money's in my bank account that day. I'm opening it and I'm at least checking it out. So on average, email subject lines between 61 to 70 characters. I say between 4 to 9 words max. That's what's read the most is 71%. But don't go past 9 words on your subject line. So here's a few best practices. Aim for 4 to 7 words, no more than 9, around 40 characters to ensure that it's easily scannable because it cuts it off at a certain point. You only get so many words. And I usually like to lead with the most important word because that's the first word that they say. Hurry is a very important lead word. Hurry, sale ends tomorrow. Sometimes that's all people need to see. You can keep it simple. It doesn't have to be this like crazy creative subject line. Sometimes the simplest things work. Again, trial and error. And it all depends on what your target audience likes. Make sure your title is relevant though. You don't ever want to steer people in the wrong direction, like have them open it and be like, wait, that wasn't what I expected to see, because then that's going to mean they're less likely to open it the next time.
Or they're going to mark you spam, or they're going to just delete it. Yeah.
Like the dreaded, that's like every marketer's worst nightmare, the spam folder. It's like
the more and more people mark it, if someone marks it as spam, it's most likely not even going to hit their inbox anymore. It's always going to go to spam. But
Mhm.
also, like, the more people mark it as spam, there's an algorithm to the emails, so it's going to learn and start putting your stuff in more people's spam inboxes instead of their. So that's why, yeah, definitely, I like that tip about the congruence.
Yeah, and I think I have something about that, something about not overstaying your welcome. I might have that a little later on.
I love
Definitely
that
never
too.
want to overstay your welcome in someone's inbox because, yeah, again, once they unsubscribe or once they report as spam, it's over. Questions are a great way to get people to open an email. If you can ask a question that gets your target audience to say yes, it's like, well, then why wouldn't they open it logically? So questions are just a really great, simple tactic. Like, do you want to save more? Do you want to buy this? Whatever, ask them a question that they cannot say no to, and that ups that open rate. Just like in your product descriptions, you want to always be highlighting benefits. You want to always, always, always be letting them know first what is in it for them. It's not about getting your information out there, it's about letting them know what is in it for them. So, wherever you can in the subject line, let them know what's going to happen when they open this email. Like discounts inside, sale inside, or whatever it is. And you don't use the word inside, but it should basically be clear to them what they will gain by opening this email. It should be clear to them in the subject line. And A/B testing is a great way to see what your audience is responding to. A/B testing, it depends on the platform, but you can have one or two or three. I don't know if any platforms let you do like a ton of different subject lines, and I wouldn't really recommend doing a ton of them, at the most three. But you can divide your audience up so that it sends audience A this subject line and audience B this subject line, and you can see which one performs better. And then you're like, oh, okay, my audience really responds to FOMO, or oh, my audience really responds to engaging questions. And look, this is not something that you're going to learn overnight. Okay, this takes months of tracking. You're not going to learn this about your audience right away, but once you do learn it, it's going to be solid. So it's just like with everything in marketing, it's so much about the data and the numbers, because you never can assume what your audience is going to like. You have to pay attention. So here's the beautiful AIDA framework. This is the framework that I personally operate out of because I think it really helps to tell the story. There's a great book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And he talks about making your customer the hero in the story. A lot of companies want to come in and be the hero, and they have to realize that it's the customer that's the hero. You are kind of only the guide of them. And when your customer can see themselves in your story, that helps with the connection, that helps with the relating, and that helps them to want to buy from your brand. Excuse me. So AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. Attention meaning you want to have some kind of attention grabbing headline. So like that's your subject line, or even when you open the email, an attention grabbing headline will first draw them in. Again, we're scrolling through so much. Think about what will stop the scroll. And I just want to mention, I wrote here also that it can be an intriguing image as well to get their attention with like intriguing words on it. We are talking about copywriting, but it can also translate in that way. Next is you want to get their interest. And this is also how I describe as like the pain point section. And by the way, this AIDA framework, this works for websites, this works for emails, not necessarily social posts, unless they're like longer thought leadership posts. I would say this definitely works for thought leadership posts. But I just want you guys to understand that when I'm describing this, I'm describing a bunch of different, this works for blogs. So this is like a bunch of different types of copywriting. And for you guys, this might most be important to your website and to your emails. So yeah, once you have their attention, now you want to build their interest. And you do this by really hitting on those pain points. This is where you separate your target audience from your not target audience. This is where they're either going to go, oh my God, yes, this is me. Or, oh, this doesn't really sound like me. In which case, you didn't want them anyway. So you want to discuss all the pain points, all the problems you solve. Really, this is where you're drawing them in and making them resonate with everything that you're saying. Like you want them to think like, wow, they are talking right to me. This is where I'm meant to be. And then once they have that interest, wham, bam, then you hit them with a desire, which is what I also call the solution. Then you come in and you're like, oh, you got these problems? Okay, let me tell you how I can solve them. And again, I want to point out that like even if you're selling clothing or something where you don't think that there's like a problem, and there's not so much of a problem as maybe like something like skincare where the problem is wrinkles, it's not as clear cut of a problem, but something like not having the confidence in your own body is something that you can play on. That these clothes make you feel confident in your body. You can always kind of come up with something that is a problem, even if it's not as clear cut as some of the products. And I just wanted to say that because I don't want anyone to feel left out of this discussion. This applies to literally all of you. So we're creating this desire, and you're talking about what you got, what your product does. You're talking about the benefits, not the features. This is where you're painting the picture of what their life could look like if they buy your product. And then to kind of seal the deal. And I hope that you guys see that this is really taking them through a storied journey where you're starting with like their problems, and then you're like, look how good life can be. And then the happy ending is the call to action. That's where you prompt them. And we already talked about call to action. So you guys are experts at this point, I'm assuming. But that's kind of how you close it out. And it works. It's a beautiful framework. And it makes writing easier when you kind of know that you have this framework that you have to stick with as well. So here's a few e-marketing best practices that you want to stick with. This is what I was talking about. Don't overstay your inbox welcome. It is so much more important, first off, to have an email list that is fully targeted versus just everyone you meet on the street and you're just emailing them because like, oh, hopefully maybe they'll buy. Because again, those are the people that are going to report as spam. They're going to unsubscribe. They're going to make your numbers go down. You don't want them. You want a targeted audience, but don't overstay your welcome with that targeted audience. That means you're not sending them emails every 5 hours. Maybe you're not even sending them emails every day. That's another thing that people will sometimes ask me and I don't have a direct answer to, which is how often should I be emailing my customers? Because that's going to be different with every industry. You know, I'm a copywriter. My email people do not want to hear from me every day on copywriting tips. But you have to find that out. I always say it's better to start with less and ramp up if it's going well versus overwhelming people with a bunch of emails and then trying to scale down. So what I recommend is starting out with one every week or one every 2 weeks, whatever you can handle, and just see how they're performing, see how people are reacting. Does it seem like they want some more? If it seems like they want some more, give the people more by all means. But do not overstay your welcome, or they will hit that unsubscribe. And once they do, you don't ever get them back. Put yourself in their shoes. This is where the psychology element comes in, where I was a theater major, so I kind of take on the role of the customer. And I'm like, all right, what would get me to open this? What would get me to buy this? Would I enjoy reading this? Does this add value to my life? Would this get me to take action? Really put yourself in their shoes and be honest. I know that we think everything about our business is great, but put yourself in someone else's shoes. Will they think it's great? Always make sure to optimize for mobile users. People tend to forget most email platforms should have a layout where you can see how it looks on a desktop and how it looks on a cell phone. And you definitely want to make sure to check that cell phone because so many people, myself included, especially in the morning, are checking on their phones. So you want to make sure that it still looks pretty and reads well for them. And maintain consistency. That means in frequency, tone, length. It's about forming these habits in your customers. And again, tracking that data, which will take a while, but open rates, click-through rates, and conversion rates are probably the 3 most important things that you want to track when it comes to email marketing to see how you're performing and where you can perform better. And then it's a little difficult to see, and I know you guys are going to get the presentation. So if you want to dive, and I don't want to take up too much time on this one. So you can take a look at this later. I'm not going to read the whole email, but this email got me my highest open rate ever, almost 70%. The intriguing subject line that I used was, "This is the most important email in your inbox today." And I know that seems like a big promise, but I made sense in the email. And it got so many people to open it. And it's fully AIDA framework, and you can read through it as an example later on. And lastly, dare to be different. You need to think outside the box and then go 100 more feet outside of it. Because again, there's so many yous out there. There's so many people trying to sell their stuff. It really takes a lot to grab someone's attention. And that doesn't mean like be wacky and be insane, it's just think differently. Think differently. How can I present this in a different way than everyone else is? And one of the ways that I like to figure that out is to look at disruptors in other industries. I have a friend who's really good at being very different in the real estate space. And I'll sometimes look at what he's doing and I'm like, okay, how can I apply this to the copywriting space? So, and that way it's better than like looking at disruptors in your industry, because you never want to copy off of someone else. But if you look at someone in a completely different industry, like I said, real estate and copywriting, they're totally opposite. But sometimes I see his tactics and I'm like, okay, I think I can make that work for me. So do that. Look at people in other industries. Look at me. Maybe you could get some ideas from me, or get some ideas from Angela. She's disrupting her industry. I also like to surprise and delight the cousin to above and beyond. That means, we always say we go above and beyond for our customers, but how exciting if like they open an email and there's something even extra cooler in there than what they expected. That's going to condition them. And yes, there's a reason my last name is Pavlov, because we are conditioning our customers. Just condition the dogs, but we are conditioning them. So if they find something really cool inside the email that's like, oh, I didn't expect that to be in there, they're going to be trained to keep opening these emails for these little surprise and delights. And that can mean like an extra perk or whatever it is. I also like to incorporate pop culture and other fun references, not just because I love pop culture, but because it's something that connects us all. I failed to mention this, but I'm sure you guys totally realize that I'm a comedian. And something that we learn in comedy is that people love to be in on the joke. We love to like get it, And when people, the best example I can use is the whole Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce phenomenon. Everyone was using memes about that in their marketing. And it worked because everyone was in on the joke. Everyone knew like what was going on in the moment, that like there was this Taylor and Travis insane media storm. And people like being in on the joke. They like getting it. It's just another way to connect, because when you talk about things that are like pop culture or things that are going on in the moment, it's things that lots of people can resonate with, because we're all in this cog, if you will. And lastly, if all else fails, what would Beyonce do? Beyonce is unlookawayable from. She is magnetic because she's always out there. Like, who the heck thought that this beautiful R&B pop diva would do a country album? She's always looking for what's next and what's different. So don't try to be like everyone else out there. Don't look at people in your industry and be like, okay, how can I emulate them? Try to be totally different, because they already have their customer base. It's time to find yours. And with that, this is a copywriting book that I have. It's really awesome because it has all these DIY copywriting templates for people that need just a little bit of extra hand holding if you're just kind of starting out on this journey. And I think the best part of it is that it's 60 days of content ideas, because for me personally, coming up with content is the hardest thing. So that's just something that I have, and you guys will get the slide again. But with that, I'm going to exit out of this and turn it back to Angela.
Oh my goodness, so many juicy tips. And, obviously branding is something that we help with a lot, but we focus primarily on the visual branding, which, it all goes together. You can't have one without the other. You can't design a visual brand and vibe without knowing, who that's supposed to be attracting and what sort of words are you using, like the graphics that we make. So it all kind of fits in together. But I think that like copy is something not talked about enough in our industry because I think people just I just think I'm just curious anybody who's on here like do you work on your copy? Do you have a messaging guideline? You know, like if you worked with us, you have your visual branding guideline document that you can share with anybody that you work with. I hope you do so that everything stays visually consistent. But again, yes, what about the words that you're using? Do you guys have a document like that? I think it's just so important again to keep everybody on the same page. And I also love how you talked a lot about like in different areas of your business, like doing that trial and error. So even like feedback on your social posts, that could just be a matter of like, if you're not sure what your voice should be or what is going to resonate or connect to your audience, try sharing different sorts of things. Try sharing them in different ways, like in different attitudes, you know. Post something that's a little bit more professional versus something that feels unpolished and messy or hot messish, you know, and see like what actually gets engagement, what gets people, especially if it's getting people to, because there's also like the people that'll engage with you versus the people that'll buy. So you want to make sure that you're focused on the people that will buy. And that's where you want to get, like I've posted, especially lately, like you want to repel people with your brand, even the messaging that you're using, because those are the wrong people that are not likely to ever purchase from you anyway. So don't worry about them. Don't even try to please them. It's never going to happen. And even if you could please them, well, they're not going to buy. So now you're wasting your time and effort and energy. So figure out the messaging, the words that you can use, right, to attract the people that will buy, that will love everything about you and your business. So yeah, I really love so many good tips there. If anybody, so we are going to share her presentation later today or tomorrow on our socials and probably via our email. But if you want to make sure you grab it, feel free to comment too, and I can message it to you. And I don't see any questions on here right now, but we are still on for a little bit here. If you do have any questions, if you want some specific feedback, but yeah, I would be just curious, you know, how you guys are using copy now. I mean, you're using it whether you like it or not, like whether you
It's the
think you
point.
are. Yeah. But like, have you given it thought like that? You know, do you
Like
have
you're
that?
using copy, but you might not be using copywriting, honestly. Like there's words, but then the copywriting has to come in to be like, okay, are they persuading people though?
Yeah.
Which
And
is
I love that, like, you were kind of talking about like an inside joke, but really anything just like that can bond a community of like, you know, even when you look at like all this Stanley stuff, I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy what's been happening. But now there's all these sub communities too of like people that are buying, like, I don't know, I don't have a Stanley yet, but like people that are buying like accessories for their
oh my God,
Stanley.
yeah.
And like there's videos on that going viral. And it's like, it's all because like, to be a part of something, you know? I was also just like, the last couple nights I've been watching, like, Rewind the 90s because, like, how were the 90s like 30 years ago? Is that right? Oh my god.
You know,
Like,
another interesting point about the Stanley Cup that I actually sometimes make and I forgot to make, is they're such an interesting company when it comes to target audience. They're a case of like not finding your
yeah,
target audience, but your target audience finding you. And they're a case of being open to that. Like no one was because Stanley Cups were made for I think like construction workers,
right, right.
people who are like on the job. And somehow, I don't know how that target audience changed where all of a sudden it's just like women in
When
their
they saw the
30s.
opportunity, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and like
would be curious how
they
that
could have
started.
said like, "Nah, this isn't our target audience. Like this is what we're here for." They could have been stubborn in their mission and their brand voice, but they saw that opportunity and they were like, "Pivot, pivot, pivot." And that's why you if you want to make that money, you got to be open to what's work. I mean, you can sit in your they could have sat in their brand all day and be like, "No, we're sticking to this. This is what we want to do." And that's fine. They just would have missed out on a massive, massive opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. With the 90s show, like, so things were coming up there, like the Beanie Baby craze and the
Mhm.
Tamagotchi craze, and like, think about how can you make your boutique kind of a craze? Because if you look at the biggest boutiques, the most successful, that is what they do. They have a really solid, strong community. They have fans. They have, people want to be a part of it, and they want to be, they want to be in on the joke, on the community. So it's just all stuff to think about for sure. So next week we are going to run a giveaway for an hour with Jill, consulting on your copy. Can you share a little bit more, Jill, about what kinds of things that you can help with during that time?
Yeah, so I love to kind of lend an eye to what you already have to see what we can improve and what we can build upon. So I can help with things like emails, blogs, websites are usually the most popular thing that people want me to look over. And obviously, that's your digital storefront. So it's really, really important, but we can get a lot done. I'll give you lots of tips and tricks and just kind of like insights into what people might be thinking when they look at your page. It's always good to have even if it's not an expert eye, even if it's just a friend, have them look at your website and just say, what's clear, what's not clear. That's just a great place to start. Make sure everything's clear, because if there's any form of confusion, they're out. They're out and they're onto your competitor. So even that, so that's something that I do, is I make sure that everything on your website is clear, but I make sure that it's telling a story, and just make sure that it's all your copy is just as effective as possible. And we'll just go through together, talk. I'll obviously have tons of jokes ready, and it'll be a good time. And
And
I'll
if
probably
you
buy whatever you're selling by the end of the consult also, just
Oh my God, yes,
love
like,
shopping, so
yes. I definitely shop a little bit too much, but I love when it's with my clients, so it's all good. So next Monday, we will announce the giveaway in our group, in the Hot Mess group. If you don't know where that is, again, feel free to message me. I can make sure you have the link. And then next Friday is when we'll announce who wins and all that stuff. But in the meantime, if you're catching the replay, if you have any questions for Jill on copywriting, please feel free to either ask in the group, post on this video, and we'll get back to you. Yeah, so thank you for joining, everybody on here, and thank you, Jill, for joining me too.
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so everybody have let's see, it is Thursday morning, right? I am like always in the twilight zone. Like I never know like what day or time it is. Okay.
Everyone have a great Thursday, and then
Yes,
weekend's coming, and then
yes,
Friday weekend's coming after that.
exactly,
Great
exactly.
rest of your month, great rest of your year.
All right, goodbye, you guys.
Bye.